The history for this game. ActRazer released in Japan December 16th of 1990, November 91 here in the US, and March 1993 in Europe. Now ActRazer was two games in one, action-adventure meets SimCity. This game does have a very interesting development as well, and has yet again met North American censorship, this time over Judeo-Christian themes. Although for the most part, the themes are still very much intact. However, the main character and the antagonist names had to be changed. The Master is actually supposed to be called God, and the game is about heaven versus hell. The Master is God, descending to Earth to become mortal to save the people. Sound familiar? Tanzera, another name for the evil one, was called Satan. He's also called Lucifer, the fallen one. ActRazer is filled with Christian themes and theology throughout the entire game. One man can foresee the future or see visions and is called a prophet by the people. The people, when they pray, they clasp their hands and drop to one knee, as most Christians used to do. There's a level also dealing with sacrifice, where a group of people are willing to die for the rest of their people to save them from being eaten by a werewolf. Later in the game, too, the people have to deal with a false prophet claiming to be God. This turns out to be a lie, and the people ended up rejecting the Master and worship the false idol instead, and they turn evil. It's then up to God to descend to Earth as a mortal and save his people from their wicked ways. Now, at the end of the game, as time moves on, the people become more advanced, and they forget what the Master has done for them, to the point where they are now self-sufficient and they don't need help from anyone or anything. Even so, the Master ascends into heaven, and the angel says that the Master will continue to look over his people, even though they do not believe he exists. See very heavy Judeo-Christian themes here. Moving on, ActRazer received a sequel in 1993, but it's actually a prequel where God the Master kicks the devil out of heaven and faces the 7 deadly sins on Earth. This sets up the first ActRazer game as to why the Master is now powerless in the beginning of the game. What's interesting about the second game is they removed the sim elements from ActRazer 2. It's only an action-adventure game, and it's a very long one at that. They have added flight mechanics, though, which is pretty cool, and a shield that you can actually use to defend yourself. What a concept. The Master is also given kind of a Greek overlook in his appearance and stuff like that. Now, ActRazer is a very long and fun game, and it released for the Wii Virtual Console on spring 2007 and the summer of 2007 here in the United States. I do highly suggest that you guys download this for just 800 Wii points. A lot of fun, and you'll be playing it for a while. Alright, time for the tips and strategies for this game. There's actually a lot to do in this game, too much for me to tell you without giving away all the secrets to ActRazer. However, I will give you guys some of my pro tips to get the most out of this game. Some people may not like the sim part of this game, but later in the game, once you acquire the earthquake, this game becomes a lot more fun. What's great about causing earthquakes is it forces your people to rebuild bigger houses. This in turn increases your population, and this is how you gain levels much faster. But make sure that you only use the earthquake after you have freed your people from their sorrows. Because if you use the earthquake before you slay all the demons, you'll end up wiping out half your population, which is bad for leveling up, and the people too. So once the demon is dead, then use the quake, and the people will rebuild. So feel free to make your people quake with fear. I know, bad pun. Alrighty, moving on. To make your action levels easier, I suggest getting the shooting star magic from Bloodpool. This is an offering from your people there. This magic can be used to wipe out more than half the bosses in this game. Even on the harder difficulties, the shooting star magic is still a godsend, trust me. It's kind of funny that an early magical attack you get turns out to be your best weapon against the forces of evil in the entire game. To me, that seems really nice of Enix to include this power early on in the game. Okay, now I have one more little trick I can pass on to you guys. After beating the evil one and watching the long skip-proof ending I've tried, hit reset on your Super Nintendo or bring up the Wii menu and hit reset the game. Now go to the title screen and press select twice. If done right, the professional mode will appear. If you thought this game was easy, be prepared to get your keister handed to you big time. Alright, time for the bad aspect. I have but only one major thing I hate about ActRazer, and that is the sim part of Northwall. Why, you may ask? Well, not only do you have to defend your people from monsters, but you also have to direct them to seal the monsters. For some reason, the people don't listen to you, and they rebuild a house instead of building where you tell them to, which is dumb because they can only rebuild so many times. What happens is, once they are done rebuilding, they hardly send someone to build stuff, so if you want to seal monsters, it takes much longer. The giant skulls are really annoying too and tested my patience enormously, because if they land on the ground, they will cause an earthquake and wipe your people off the face of the earth. They also take 10 hits from the angel to die. Another thing about Northwall is the demons of pestilence that wipes out your wheat. The master can only send rain one square at a time, which to me sounds really dumb. Because, I mean, you're supposed to be God. You could, make the whole continent rain instead of one square. But that's just me. Time for the good aspect. I loved the side-scrolling action levels. If you're as big a fan of Castlevania as I am, then you can see why I enjoyed this part of the game tremendously. While it would have been nice to, maybe block stuff with your sword like Shinobi, dodging is still pretty fun. I'll say it again, I love the backgrounds of this game too. Northwall's action stages are really challenging and honestly will humble any hardcore gamer very quickly. Just remember the classic controller isn't as durable as the SNES controller, so less times thrown against the wall is for the best. I miss the old days. Time for the conclusion for this game. Even if you're not a fan of the game's moral message, heaven versus hell concept, or its sim-like gameplay, ActRaiser still has plenty to offer the player. Because of who the game was targeted to 17 years ago, I'm going to suggest that only the hardcore crowd download this game. But if you sim strategy gamers want to take a crack at it, it's your Wii points. Well, I did enjoy this game, and my wife has started playing through it and is getting pretty good at it. And the inclusion of the professional mode adds another layer to this game. ActRaiser has a great story, nice visuals, tight gameplay, and decent replay value too. In any case, I have to give ActRaiser a 7 out of 10. I'm just a sucker for awesome backgrounds in video games. Well, next week is LEGO Batman, and I will be doing a co-op review with my adoring wife, although that review can only be found on gotgame.com. Well, God bless and happy gaming. Thank you so much for watching this review. This is Kwing signing off.
LEGO Batman, the video game.